I'm just going to jump right into it with the new video. So this time, had a good friend of mine send me a clip, or rather, it was probably a 20-minute long video from a veteran creator, Valhalla VFT. This is called The End. Or, no, excuse me, we've lost the war in Iran already. And I'm not going to play the video. This is just a screenshot from the top of the comment section. And our good friend Alexander Bohm states that I'm old enough now to contemplate that we've been fucking around in the Middle East since I was a kid in 1990. And we have nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing. It's unfathomable. We're still at this. Been upvoted over 100 times. And wow, you couldn't hardly say it with much more conviction and truth than that. Now, anyone who's hip to the game does understand that we have been in the Middle East region for, looks like we're trying to turn into 4 decades running. And there's, I suppose you could definitely count on one hand the positives that have come from it. I'll leave that for you to do. It's a little overwhelming to think about the disaster and the failure the campaign in the Middle East has been, especially when you have to take into account that no real measures were ever taken to win the wars. There was never an initiative to go in and actually dominate the battlefield and secure perimeters. Just endless fighting. ROEs where you can't even engage the enemy. So, certainly, a non-starter. And you can't get in the habit of just kind of discounting the war. We sent a lot of people over there, especially the initial invasion of Iraq in the early turn of the millennia. Very, very brutal warfare, and a lot of people went over there. And we've got survivors in our country, amazing veterans, brave guys that did it. And you see now the end result for very questionable. And some would say, I might even argue that part of the reason guys feel maybe some form of PTSD at times is because they have no way to actually reason with the actions, the experience. You find out it's for these just massive hedge fund money, private equity interests that it really warps you, because it's just poor people on poor people crimes at that point. Digress about the economic structure of warfare. Because we have nothing to show for it, like Alexander says, absolutely nothing. Because here's the thing. Iran, man, I'm not inside any sort of circle of operations that's deciding what's happening on the battlefield. They're probably using technology beyond anybody's even understanding. So what's happening right now is crazy, and it's probably super high speed. But it's pointless, because what are we going to do? And we're stuck there. The thing is, you could sell me your Iran dreams if we won in Iraq and Afghanistan. And to be clear, winning means defeating the Taliban and whatever other insurgent regiments, governments you were there to destroy, Saddam Hussein and company. You defeat them, and then you seize the country, right? You occupy it with your forces. And then you enforce your laws and your customs in those lands. And, of course, do a high level of business, as all American interests are about, out of the said new territory. and then you have victory. And should we have done that in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now you had your eyes on Iran, these things would be making sense, truthfully. But just total and complete other failure. Because I mean, you can't gloss over Iraq. Iraq was the real deal, and what did we get out of it? This whole like puppet regime thing is just such a joke. We keep just popping up insurgents and puppet governments to go fight a war, and we're funding both sides of it every single time. It's a ridiculous piece of theater that is very dangerous, very real, and people lose their lives. Super tragic because it's honestly for nothing but lining people's pockets again. But stay on the matter that it's a long campaign with Afghanistan. Afghanistan, greatest military failure of all time. Occupied this country for, again, nearly 2 decades. And you're going to leave enough equipment to outfit a very formidable force. And I feel like that's highly understated. They had everything under the sun over there, just left it. And guys died in the extract. 13 Marines lost their lives in the exit. And it was absolute chaos, from what I understand. Total failure. Theirs. So, and then again, you got the guy down below, right below. I thought it was great here too. He's just week 1, we won. Week 2, we've won beyond measure. Week 3, send help. I do not think it's as simple as what people are being sold. But then again, it's like the whole idea is to keep everyone confused, right? You just say we've already won, it's over, we're about to win, or this war's going to go on for a while, or it could end tomorrow. Just to keep people in that static phase of, okay, I guess endless war in the Middle East. Because again, imagine that. Had we turned Iraq and Afghanistan into vassals of the United States, and we had stabilized peace in the region, international flights, total safety, relatively, to a civilization and society in general. And then, of course, you have economic interests, and of course, geopolitically, and then again now the Iran thing, it could make sense if that's what you were doing, because then that would put us in that huge swath of territory. Obviously, there's resources, and we are here calling the shots, right? We're here going, nope, we're gonna do it the chill American way, right? Not the classic way it's been in the Middle East for 1,400 years, right? A new era of rules and customs, and then of course you control the area, and you tell the folks over at the edge of the Mediterranean Sea who are just so main charactered out, you tell them, and it's like, we're in charge here. You, the Israelites, are going to do what we say you're going to do, okay? We've come in here, we've taken over the Middle East, we've made it safe for you to exist here, and now you're going to be quiet. When we tell you to be quiet, when you're going to do what we say, how we say it, right? Because we control the Middle East. That right there, whether people like it or not, sounds like an American dream to yours truly. On the other hand, in reality, right, it looks like the whole entire thing has been manufactured in this underbelly for us to just spill resources and send money to foreign interests and just gut and bleed our economy for everything. So a certain country, a certain group of people could have this what do they call it? A right to exist. You know, I mean, personally, if you can't stop the horde of barbarians from coming in and running your town over, then you don't really. You know, you have to be able to protect your people. And that's a lot of people really take for granted the American capabilities. You know, people feel untouchable because of how militarily powerful the United States has been for so long. Either way, the point is, it's been crumbling, right? Our standards have been crumbling, and it looks like it's also this other country in the Middle East can take over these places, right? Can turn into their vast swath of land where they control the resources, and they have the say about what happens in these bodies of water and what barrels of oil go where, right? And that would be okay if they took it over themselves, right? But we, as the Americans, have done every last bit of the heavy lifting. And with that in mind, why should we let them just have the region? Perhaps because it's been orchestrated to be that way, right? There's a lot of politicians who insist it's the greatest thing ever, right? Like they're going over there and they're kissing the magic wall more than they're traveling through the towns and the communities of their constituents. It's very strange. I mean, really. And they sell you this idea like it's just another run-of-the-mill walk in the park. Our greatest ally. Like, again, but not main interest. You know, even if people are your ally, it's not your main interest. Right? Your main interest is your blood and soil, where you're from. Looking after your community and your countrymen. So it seems pretty blatantly obvious why there's so many people in the political sphere that are super concerned about the Star of David reigning across the Middle East. And they'll say you an idea that it's biblical, as religious, but that would only be the case if you would also equate money to being God, right? Because these people serve money. These people love money. And that's probably what it is, right? They're going to pull people's heartstrings and they're going to say, you know, some sort of religious thing. But ultimately, it seems like there is certainly some financial gain, right? So how much worse can you make it sting? The very people who have supposedly been elected by the people to represent the people are actually whoring themselves out to foreign interests, both figuratively and literally. So at that point, what do? You know, you've got the entire machine that is bam. Okay, knocked out some somersaults. And I didn't watch the video back, but I feel like I've said everything there really is to say for this segment. Ultimately, it is pretty fairly obviously evident that our own elected officials have sold out every piece of and flesh that is the American body. And it's down to the last bones. They're looking to make the final profits. Also, this one teeny tiny country on the fringe of things Middle East can take over all the Middle East, and they can impose their religious ideology and their all-important prophecy, right? And they're also somehow fighting against these other people who are the newest iteration of their religion, but they're also using them, deploying them to other countries to help destabilize. It's a strange catastrophe that's just a mind-boggling question. Why didn't we go in there and just beat both of them and just take over the whole Middle East? As a truly American interest, it's like why didn't we just do that? Also because we had the capabilities. 100% that was on the table for the United States Armed Forces to do. The concerning thing is I'm not sure it is capable of that anymore, right? With how things have changed. When you look at it, honestly, I don't know why. If we went over there with real American interests to actually take over and do things for the American people, then we would have won and we would be in control right now. But the whole point is to bleed our country dry of everything, on just money, will to live. The American people so numb to it. It's painful to see in some people. But nonetheless, we persist. I've stated in a previous video, the ground invasion is going to be one of their next moves. And there's a lot of strong young guys in this country, more than people are willing to admit. And it's really, what fight do you want? Do you want the last-ditch effort in the Middle East that I think the whole grand plan is for the Americans to lose anyway? If we haven't already, right? The title of this video is that America's already lost the war. But again, do you want to go and fight that battle, or looks to be an inevitable battle for our home soil, the heart and soul. So that's that, man. That's that. There's a lot of people who feel some type of way about what's happening in the world right now, and the American people collectively have the power to influence. To not only influence, but to really cause motion on the playing field, so to say, as some might allude to this illusionary world being just a game. I digress about metaphysical philosophy. Point is, love the American people, love the American veterans. Don't want to see more young guys go to a pointless end in nowhere other side of the world. Would rather see our country and nation prosper. And that's keeping everybody here on the soil and doing the best things for the American people. So that's that. Keep going. Much love.